We're going to get started this evening. We're glad that you all came out and that it stopped pouring for you to get into the building. I'm Joyce Lewis. I'm the school counseling director here at Goffstown High School, and with me this evening is Denise Fall, who is one of our school counselors here as well. Between the two of us, I think we've determined that we have somewhere between 25 to 30 years of experience in the college application process. What's kind of neat and is true of our entire staff is that we all have different experiences in the college admissions process. I was a counselor here for many years, and now I'm the school counseling director. I've done a week intensive workshop at Harvard on the college admissions process, where it culminated in an activity where you got to be part of the admissions committee and go through applications and have that experience. Denise has been a school counselor, and she's also worked for NEAF, if you ever heard of New Hampshire Higher Education Assistance Foundation. So she was one that went to schools all across the state and gave presentations on both the college application process as well as the financial aid process. And I think, if I'm not misspeaking, Denise also was a reader for Northeastern University and was on their admissions team during the heavy admissions season for a couple of years. So lots of experience. We are still learning, so ask us any questions you have. We may not have the answers, but we probably have a pretty good idea of where to find those answers for you. We love this process. We love working with students on college and career. It's all about opportunity, and it's a fun part of our job. So challenge us. We like the challenge. Tonight we're going to cover the college search and things to be aware of as you're looking at colleges and how to make the most of college visits. Creating the list, the actual nuts and bolts of the application process, which is just starting for your students right now. The senior year timeline, so kind of try what you need to be doing to be keeping on track. A little bit of a financial aid review. It's going to be a little bit of information now. The FAFSA will open up on October 1st, and we're going to have a financial aid night that's just going to cover financial aid on October 13th. And lastly, scholarships. I think that's the thing that all the parents here have come for tonight, is to hear about the scholarship piece, because college is expensive. So if your students have or haven't shared with you, in the last week we've been going into all senior English classes, and we've been talking about this process for the college, getting started on the college application process. We're recommending the 2-2-2 approach. Students were asking when we were in classrooms, like, what if I want to apply to 10 schools, or what if I'm only applying to 3? This is just a general rule of thumb, but having schools in every category is what's the most important. So you want to have 2 schools that are safety schools, where your academic profile is slightly above the average at that school, and you have a really good likely chance to get admission to that school. Another safety school is often a state school or a community college that's a financial safety school, because schools will have a whole varying range of cost and expense depending on where they are and what kind of school they are. 2 target schools, those are schools where everything that you have on your transcript, your SAT scores, they all match up with what is the average accepted student for that school. And then to reach schools, it's okay to have reach schools. Students get into reach schools. It's okay to have those schools where maybe something is slightly below the average at that school, but apply anyways. You may get in. We have kids throw their names out there for schools they may not have applied to on an event we called I Am College Bound last year, and they were pleasantly surprised they did get into those reach schools. So it's always worth having those kinds of schools on your list as well. It is not recommended to have an unbalanced list where everyone is in just one category on your list. So kind of going through that, and counselors help with that. They'll go through the list and they'll kind of help you categorize what area each school falls in when they're looking at your transcript and your SAT scores. Many schools are still test optional. That was kind of a trend we saw during the pandemic. Some are, it's changing, so make sure you check your school's website, but many are still test optional. When they look at your academic profile, they're going to look at not only your grade point average, but they're going to look at the rigor of courses that you took. and they're going to look at that in the context of what our high school offers. So they're not going to compare you with a school, like for instance, Bedford High School is an IB school. You're not going to be judged because you're not an IB student, because you didn't have that opportunity at Goffstown High School. So they know what our school offers, they know what honors classes, what AP classes, and they can look at your transcript and see what you've taken advantage of in your environment and not judge you against students coming from other schools with different opportunities. It's good to have a balanced approach when it comes to the type of school as well. Having some public schools and private schools, some schools that are in-state or out-of-state. New Hampshire does have a lot of schools, but there are some schools, some majors that our state schools don't have. So there's some out-of-state schools in Connecticut, Massachusetts, Maine, that will offer you in-state tuition if it's a major that's not offered at a school in New Hampshire. For instance, one that comes to the top of my head is actuarial science. Actuarial science is a very finite major. It's very much with statistics. It's not something that you can get at UNH, Plymouth, or Keene. You can get at UConn, and if you were applying for that major, you could go to UConn for a tuition break program, which is a lower than out-of-state tuition program. It's good to think about location. How far away from home do you want to be? Have you gone to visit if you want to be far away from home? Do you know what it feels like to travel that distance to that school? And how big of a school is it, or how small of a school is it? Some students think that they want to go to a big school until they go and visit a school and they go inside a classroom with 300 students in it and say, oh, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And on the other side of things, Goffstown High School has about 1,000 students. There are colleges out there with about 1,000 students. And that's something that may appeal to some students but not to others. So kind of visiting campus, knowing what it feels like with the size and how many students are on campus. The other one with location is one of the things that came out in conversations when I started talking to kids last week about schools that they visited. Some of the things that they found out was that there's nothing out here. I can't go to school because there's nothing out here. I can't go to school here. And other students were like, I love it. It's out, we're hiking and, you know, kayaking and things that I love to do, so I love this school. So really going to visit that location beyond just looking at what it has to offer online can help you make those choices and narrow down those decisions. When you're looking at majors and minors, some majors are more competitive than others. So when you're looking at admissions requirements, like for instance, UNH's nursing program is more competitive than getting into UNH. So knowing those things and knowing when a school might be a safety or a probable school for you, that the program might be a little bit more competitive. So it's good to have other options on your list as well. There are two kinds of aid that are offered at schools, and they'll get into this a little bit more on financial aid night, but knowing if a school offers need-based aid and merit-based aid are important things to look at. Need-based aid is going to come directly from your FAFSA. Depending on the school, they might use a form called the CSS profile. Merit-based aid is going to look at your grades and your SAT scores, and that they give out scholarships based on what you've achieved. There are some schools that are full need schools. They tend to be reach schools. They're not schools that do merit aid because everybody at those schools is at the top of their class. So they give out financial aid based on need, and they determine that need from the CSS profile and from the FAFSA. It's complicated formulas, but there is a search engine. You can do myintuition.org. It'll pull up all of the full need schools, and there's a short calculator, about 10 minutes to fill it out, and give you an idea of the ballpark you would get in financial aid at those schools. And then, again, considering if a school is test optional, many schools are still waiving test results. That being said, if your student did well on the SAT score, on the SAT test, the scores can only help you. They can help you with scholarships. If it's a merit-based school, it can help with admissions if you're applying for a competitive program. If you have good scores, definitely show them to schools it's worth the $12 that you'll pay the College Board to send them if you're going to get scholarship money because you had great scores. And then look at the kind of programs the schools have. There's some schools that an engineering co-op school. There's a list of schools that are 5-year programs, but 2 semesters are full-time co-ops. That would be like Rochester Institute of Technology. Northeastern does that. And so there's a whole list of schools that do co-ops. I think Wentworth Institute of Technology does them. Counselors can work with you to look for those information, but there's some special programs out there depending on majors that are important to know about. It's important to know if your school requires an internship because you'll have to start looking for that before your senior year, and some of those are required to graduate. And you want to know what kind of assistance you get in finding the internship and where their students typically get internships. And then most schools have study abroad programs. It wasn't like that when I went to school, but now I think that most students, if they want to travel, there are opportunities for those things to happen. It's important to know if all majors have the opportunity to study abroad. When I toured schools, sometimes engineering programs are so tight you don't have the opportunity to travel abroad, and other schools have found a way to make it work for engineering. So if you want to travel abroad, it's important to ask those questions and find out if all majors can go and study abroad and what that looks like, what are the qualifications for that, if it's over a summer, if it's during a semester, and what those opportunities are. And then if you're a student with a 504 or an IEP, it's important to talk to disability services at those schools and know what that turns into and what that looks like and what kind of support you can expect when you're at school. So the college search. So the most common major is undecided for college freshmen, so it's important that if you aren't sure what you want to do, that you have a couple of majors in mind, and even if you do have a major in mind, that there are other majors that you would be interested in that school if you think that, I'm not quite sure. So if you are not sure if you want to be an engineering major, you want to make sure you're at a school that has other majors that you're interested in case you change your mind when you get there and you start to get into the coursework. This is one, the comparing curriculum. This gets into the nitty-gritty. You can go to a school's website and you can start to look at the programs and the majors they offer and look at the types of classes that you would take. It varies from school to school, especially in wide fields like psychology or sociology, the type of classes that you can take. There's a Bachelor's of Arts in Psychology and there's a Bachelor's of Science in Psychology. What kind of courses would you be taking at the school that you're going to? So once you start to narrow down your list, really drill into the majors that you think you want to do and look at the types of courses that you're going to be taking over the 4 years that you're there and see if they match up with where your interests are. Depending on if you're a STEM major and you're planning to go on after college to do a master's or some other kind of advanced degree, you want to know if a school gives you the opportunity as an undergraduate to do research. Not all schools are research facilities, and so if that's something that you're thinking beyond your 4 years, you're going to continue on your education, you want to know what opportunities are available for you. You want to look at the facilities, you want to look at the labs. Are they newer, are they older? Where will you be spending your time doing with your classes? And then most schools will tout where their students have done internships. So look and see if those match with the types of companies that you would look to work at after college. Not all schools accept AP or Running Start credit, so those are good questions to ask. And when you're going on these college tours, ask students the questions because students will tell you what their experiences were. When you go in and you're in the big room and they give their presentation, they're giving you the highlight reel. When you go on a tour after that and you're with the students, you can ask your specific questions and get those answered from their tour guides. And then a good number that I like to look at is the retention rate and the graduation rate for school. So how many students go in as freshmen, continue on to graduation. If that's a lower number, you kind of want to look for the reasons why. Why is that school have so many students that are transferring out? There are, depending on the school, if it's a big state school, sometimes that's the number is going to be lower than a small private school, and it's based on, that the clientele and the number of students that they get, so that will affect the number. But you really want to look and see if they're able to retain the students that they get from the first year. You can find all of that, a lot of that data by using search engines, and you're going to find it in different ways in different places. So I typically, when I work with a student, I will look at both the College Board and Naviance, and sometimes, not that you're going to get conflicting information, but you'll just get different pieces of information and get a better picture of what the school looks like. So this is the part that stresses people out. I hope that you all have your smiley face stress balls. These are the deadlines. These are the important pieces to make sure you have in your calendar and that you don't miss. So early decision. Is there anybody in here who has a student considering early decision? Okay, I don't see a hand. I will, maybe? Okay, so early decision is binding. What that means is that if your student gets into that school, that you're signing an agreement that your student will go to that school. You can only apply to one school early decision. You can apply to other schools. If you get into the early decision school, you have to revoke the applications from the other schools. And there's a couple of different reasons why students would apply early decision. A lot of times is that there's a higher percentage of acceptance rate at that school. It's a competitive school, or a student wants to play a sport and the coach has said that we think that we can get you and if you apply in this early pool. So there are reasons to apply early decision. There are usually not a lot of students who apply early decision. If that's something your student is considering, just have them have a conversation with their counselor about it so they can look at their strategy for applying to schools and kind of determine, okay, we're going to apply to these schools, and then these are my next tier of schools if I get deferred to regular decision or I don't get into early decision, and just have a plan in place. Early action is one we love, because early action is you get to apply early, you get to hear before Christmas if you got into school or not, and then you get to decide in May 1st, which is National Decision Day, if you want to go to that school. A lot of our students apply early action to like UNH because it's that financial safety school, it's an in-state school, and it's that one acceptance under the belt, and then working through the process with the other schools. Financial aid forms. The financial aid forms have their own deadlines, and you can find that on each school's. It varies school to school about when the FAFSA has to be filled out. It will open up on October 1st of this year, but schools that have early action or early decision and require the CSS profile may require that in the fall. So if you're looking at those schools applying in the fall, also look at the financial aid deadline page and see which forms you need to fill out and what the deadlines for that are as well. And then regular admission it varies greatly. It's anywhere between December and February. It depends on the school. Rolling admission is kind of tricky. You do have a little bit more flexibility with rolling admission, except for when they're full. So there's no date given. Sometimes they're open admissions through April. Sometimes they've closed their doors in February. So if a school is one of your top choices and they're rolling admission, just apply when you're applying to all the other colleges on your list. All your stuff's together, you might as well send that out. And then there are some programs that have earlier deadlines. So not to scare any of the nursing students out there, but just check for earlier deadlines. Nursing's one that typically has an earlier deadline. All right. So the components of the application. There's 3 major components. The first is the application, the actual application. Many schools take the Common App, and we work with students here at school. So October 3rd and 4th, students will come from their English classes to those computers over there, and all of our counselors will be in here, and we'll be helping students finish their Common App or start and put that information into the Common Application. Some schools don't use the Common App, and they use an institution-specific form that you would access online. We can help with that too. Oftentimes they're the similar kinds of questions. It just means that it's another application that has to be done in addition to the Common App. Typically most of our students do have a Common App school that they're applying to. UNH is a Common App school. Test scores are something that the student is also responsible for. Those are College Board scores. So although we have the numbers here and we have those reports, we don't have the official document. Colleges want those to come from the College Board. When you take the SAT, you can get 4 free score reports until like the day you take the test. So if you're taking the SAT again, you'll have 4 free score reports, and you can use those to send to schools. If you're using the scores that you got from the school day SAT in the spring, you'd want to go into your College Board account and go in and send them to all those schools. And I think it's around $12 a score report to send them to colleges. We have a program that your students should know how to get into. It uses their school username and password. It's Naviance. We are going to work with students so that they can connect Naviance to that common application. That link allows us to electronically send documents to the colleges that the student is applying to. In Naviance, we will have student transcripts, their senior year schedule, their letters of recommendation from their counselor and from their teachers, and then senior year grades as they come in. Some schools ask for Q1 grades. We don't send Q1 grades unless a student tells us they have a college that needs them, because we don't put Q1 grades on our transcript. So we don't give colleges information they haven't asked for. We send all mid-year grades. All colleges want mid-year grades. So we send, after semester 1 is completed, we do send an updated transcript at that point. And then when your student is graduating, they fill out a graduation survey and they tell us where they've decided to go. We will automatically send the final transcript to the school they indicate there as well. And then the last is a little family on the bottom, and that's the financial aid. And so if all the students in here notice, it is not mom and dad's picture there, it's all of you. It's a family effort to pay for school. The FAFSA is going to have 2 accounts. There's going to be one that's a student account that's going to have any information about the student and money that they've made at summer jobs or after school jobs, and then there'll be an account for the parent as well. If you're a parent with more than 1 kid, you will have the same FAFSA account that you will use with both students, and then each of your students will have their own FAFSA account. And then the CSS profile asks for both informations as well. And I am going to hand this mic over to Denise.
Thank you.
Do you want?
Yes. Hopefully I don't point my mic and try to click with it, so just bear with me. There's a lot of coordinating happening. So I Am College Bound is a day that we get to host here, and I absolutely love this day. This was actually an event I got to run for the whole state when I worked for NEAF. So doing it with 60 some odd schools was really tough. So doing it with 1 school is a big old treat and a dream for me. It is a super fun day. We have music, we have food, donuts, cupcakes, and cookies. We have candy. So we really want students to come down here. I know that applying to college, yes, it can be a stressful process, but we want you also to have fun with it. We want you to be with your friends when you're hitting submit, high five each other, really have a fantastic day. And we also have an opportunity for you to register for a $500 scholarship. It does get sent directly to your school of choice, so if you are the lucky winner of that scholarship, we'll follow up with you in May to see where should we be sending your money. One of the wonderful things about this day is that all the New Hampshire schools waive their application fees for the students at Goffstown High School on November 3rd. So no matter what the school is that you are applying to, if there's a fee associated with it, you do not have to pay it that day. So just kind of keep that in mind in terms of, you know, college application fees, they can start adding up really, really quickly. So saving a few bucks on this day is going to be a wonderful thing. It takes place right here. We're going to have sign-ups coming up over the next few weeks, so definitely take advantage of this. And this also gets applications in before all of the early application deadlines for New Hampshire schools. So if any of your schools you're thinking of doing early in New Hampshire, come to this day. You will be about 2 weeks ahead of time, which is great. So the application, you really want to check to see what type of application your school accepts. There are a gabillion schools that do take the Common App, so that's a pretty safe one to rely on. However, there are a couple other applications. There is an institutional application. Endicott College is one that I think of. They are hanging on with their own institutional app. They are not giving any of their money to the Common App. But again, very similar to the Common App. So if you have filled that one out, you can pretty much know that the information on there, you can roll it right over to an Endicott application or to any of the other schools' institutional applications. Community colleges also have their own application. It's a very simple form. It takes about a half an hour to do, and you can fill it out once, and it works for all of the community colleges. The coalition application, we don't see a lot of those, which is not a bad thing. It's a lot for southern schools, I've noticed, that use the coalition app. This is certainly an option you can use. It does allow you to upload some different things than the Common App does. So if this is an application that you see as part of your college process and you want to explore that, definitely talk with your counselor about it so we know how to best upload those forms and everything for you. Application fees. College is expensive, and it starts right out with sending them a fee just to look over your paperwork. But at the end of the day, if you do find it is a financial struggle to meet any of those application fees, whether it's for SATs, ACT testing, or for your college applications, chat with your school counselor, because there are fee waivers available depending upon a variety of different things. Free and reduced lunch is one of the big ones that we do look at. That is a very confidential list, so if you do speak with your school counselor about it, know that that is kept very confidential. We really don't know who has it, so if you're a student that does get that service, definitely let us know, and your fees will be waived, and that is certainly a big money saver. Supplemental forms. These are things that students always at the very end go, oh, I have to do that extra piece. So with your common application, you have the overall large application that is the same for every single school, so they're all going to get the same big blanket form. However, under each of those little schools, they have some really school-specific pieces. So what major it is that you are looking to do. Are you going to be living on campus or commuting? What is your application deadline for that particular school? So things like that, on campus or off campus. So there are some really specific things that they want to know, and oftentimes they ask you a little open-ended question, something along the lines of, why are you a good fit for our school? Answer those questions, even if it says optional, it's not optional. They really, really want to hear what you have to say and think about why is it that you belong on their campus? Why should they be accepting you over these other students? So even if it says optional, just do it. If there is a chance that you happen to not get into the school, they will actually send you those questions anyway to answer as part of a deferral process. So just answer the questions the first time around. It does make your application more full and complete, and it lets the colleges know that you are serious about attending and applying there. Residency verification for your in-state tuition. This is a piece that happens once you've been accepted to the school and you've told the college that you are going to be attending there. They want to know if you live in state, if you're going to get that in-state tuition, or you live out of state. So sending over documentation, the schools will let you know what that is. A lot of people do get flagged for verification, not only for residency, but also for financial aid. I will talk a little bit about that when you get to the financial aid slide, but just don't panic if any of this happens. Pretty much everybody gets flagged for something, especially your freshman year walking in. So just read through the information on the email, reach out to the colleges, hit us up in the school counseling office if you're really not sure what to do, and we can help you navigate through that process. So we have students here, and I love that our students are so involved. We have students that are involved in 10, 12, 15, 20, 100 things. Your Common App limits you lane for that honor society. The other thing that's nice too is picking the ones that you've been a part of the longest. So colleges don't really want to see 100 different clubs that you've done for one semester. They want to see maybe you've done 10 clubs, maybe less, for a long period of time. So being involved with band for all 4 years, or being involved with peer outreach for all 4 years or 3 years. Taking a leadership role in that club or that group is really important as well, so you can ensure you can sort of step up to the plate and be a leader within that. That's always a really important part as well. And it's not just the things that you do here in the building that they want to hear about. They want to hear about sort of everything that you do. So if you're a student, maybe you're thinking, I don't get a chance to do a lot of clubs and stuff because I have to go home to watch my little brother. Oh, he's going to not let me get into college now. That's not the case. Schools really do want to know about what you're doing when you're not in the classroom and you're not studying. So if you do have a part-time job, if you do babysit, if you take care of an elderly relative, colleges do want to know that. That's important. That's part of your character. That's part of making up who you are as a person. So they do want to hear about all of those things. any volunteer work that you might do in the community, or even if you've traveled and done some things like that. All of those things are really important. And if you really are not sure what to put where, come see us in school counseling and we'll help you with that. Hey. Ooh, the college essay. I love a college essay. When I worked for NEEP, I actually used to give boot camps in the summer about the college essay, and it was just a ton of fun. Truly the biggest piece about this is that the schools are really looking to learn more about who you are as a person and a student outside of whatever else is on that application. So when they're looking through all of the applications, they're seeing everybody's activities, everybody's GPA. What's going to set you apart from everybody else? What makes you a little bit unique, a little bit different? What's going to tell them a good story about who they're going to bring onto their campus? Can you give examples of leadership? Can you give examples of being a good friend and just a good person through your essay? Those are things that they're going to be able to pull from whatever story it is that you tell. And it should be a story. It should be something that is interesting and captivating. Oh, and by the way, you have to do all of this in 600 words or less. So make every sentence really count. You really want to make sure that when you're talking about this, you're not just talking and telling the story, but also sorry, my ear just popped. But you're also talking about what did you learn from this experience? How have you grown as a person because of this? Or what did you learn based upon this crazy experience that you've had? So really that deeper critical thinking piece is the other part that colleges are going to want to pull out of that essay. I love a good college essay. I will put myself out there. I will read anybody's essay that they want me to. I will not correct your grammar because I do not follow grammar rules, but I will look at content and I will help you brainstorm ideas if you feel like something just isn't quite clicking. Your English teachers are all wonderful and they will help you probably more than I can, but I'm still happy to pitch in and help sort of work through those first initial pieces of it, or even just for content to make sure that you've got a couple people who are putting their eyes on it. Other things to consider. Letters of recommendation. I know when I meet with my students, I've been asking them, who have you asked? Did you ask them in person? Did you use your manners? All of those things that we talk about with our kids. It is really important that you do sort of try to ask in person. When teachers and counselors write your letters, most of the time they're not writing them here in the building. They're usually working on them on nights and weekends. So really making sure that you're being thoughtful about how you ask, how you're following up with them, and then that big old thank you, that is huge. Follow up with your teachers about where is it that you got in, thanking them for their time. There's a reason why you wanted this teacher to write you this letter. They must be important to you for some reason. So definitely keep them in the loop with your process. They really appreciate hearing that follow-up and that feedback as they're going through and writing your letters. When you're thinking about teachers, don't necessarily think about the teachers you got an A with. That's easy. Oh, I got an A in your class. I'll ask you for a letter. Think about the teachers that maybe you had to struggle a little bit. You had to go in to get some extra help. You had to go into their prep blocks and had to ask some questions to get clarification to make sure that you would do well. That teacher can speak a lot more to your character, your strength, your perseverance, than the teacher that you sat in the class, you answered all the questions, and you got the A. That teacher's going to write a great letter too, don't get me wrong. But colleges really want to hear about, if you struggle, how is it you're going to work through that? Their biggest fear is getting a student on campus that's never failed. And if they do, what's going to happen on that college campus? So taking these opportunities now and thinking about those teachers that have maybe helped you out in those moments and asking them for a letter, that can be a really, really strong letter for you. Auditions and portfolios. This is a whole extra piece to the application process outside of applying and financial aid. So if you're a student who is looking at doing any type of theater, art major, even engineering or interior design, there are times that you will have to do an audition or present a portfolio. Some of these are being done through Zoom opportunities now. I've met with a couple of students who are setting up those meetings for later on, but they're not having to actually travel to the college to audition. They can record themselves and send it, or they're setting up live sort of auditions that way. So it's kind of neat the different ways they get to do this now. But it's really important to check for those requirements in terms of what are those dates and deadlines, because guess what? Those are different from all the other deadlines you have to worry about. So there's just a lot of steps involved, so the more you can do research on that, the better off. The other thing to keep in mind with auditions and portfolios more specifically, sometimes colleges will have a review day before you actually have to submit it, so you can actually have them take a look at it ahead of time, get some good feedback, make some tweaks, and then submit it for real for your real application. Athletic registration. My rule of thumb is if you want to play competitive sports in college, D1, D2, D3, register with the clearinghouse. It just makes the process a lot smoother and easier. I've had students who have said, no, I'm just going to do D3, I don't need to worry about it, and ended up getting sort of spotted by a D2 school and kind of got recruited, and then they didn't have their clearinghouse stuff done, and it's just a whole big mess sometimes. So if you're a competitive athlete and that is where you want to be in college, work with Justin, work with your school counselors, but definitely make sure that you're getting registered for the NCAA. You definitely need it for 1 and 2. 3 doesn't super matter, but like I said, it would be a shame to not register and have that piece done and then need it down the road. The other thing just to keep in mind is D3 schools do not give out athletic scholarships. Just want to throw that up there. On your high school transcript, there's a lot of different things that colleges are going to be noticing. Your GPA is one of the very first things, obviously, that they're going to see on there. Along with that, though, is your courses, your grades. Your transcripts look a little funky now that I'm thinking about it. You started with some numbers, went to passing grades for COVID, and now we have letters, right? Yeah, so along when we send things out, we do have an explanation as to why the transcripts look that way, so colleges can follow along with the change in our grading scales over the course of the 4 years that you guys have been here. And if they do have questions, they will reach out to the school counselors or to Ms. Lewis and say, what am I looking at and why does I have all these different things? And then we can work with the colleges to help them understand the transcript. Typically, they're pretty good about reading through them. Trust me, there's some really, really weird transcripts out there, so they can usually figure them out. But if they do have questions, they always do follow up with the high school. When they are looking at your transcript, they're looking at several things. They're not only looking at the grades, but like Mrs. Lewis said, they're also looking at what level of rigor did you take these classes at. Did you take all open classes? Did you try to challenge yourself with some honors classes, Running Start, AP? As you continued on in high school, did you sort of dip down in your grades and stuff, or did you continue to climb? Colleges love to see this climb, because when you graduate as a senior, you're way up here, and that's who they're going to get on their campus. If you kind of start to do one of these, this is not so good, because they don't necessarily want this kid, they want this kid. So knowing that having growth on your transcript is important. I mean, obviously having a strong transcript from freshman right through senior year is great. I think we all see hiccups from COVID potentially on there. So don't let that worry you. Don't let that bother you. Talk with your school counselor about how we can help that be explained through letters of recommendation. And I just sort of talked about the trends. Mid-year and final transcripts, all schools want to see your mid-year grades. They want to make sure you're still performing well your senior year. So I can't tell you how many times I have heard, I've already applied and gotten into my schools. I can just sort of sit back and not really have to do anything for the rest of the year. Not true. Colleges will accept you. They will check your grades at the mid-year point. They will also see your grades at the very end of the year. And unfortunately, many, many years ago, I did have a student that was accepted to a school that in June got a letter that said, hey, your senior year didn't go so well. We don't think we can accept you anymore unless you can give us a really good explanation as to why. This student did not have a very good explanation as to why, and ended up having to apply to a different school, attend that school for a year, and then reapply to the other school. So it does happen. It is not fun, so please don't put your parents or your school counselors through that, thank you. But we will try to keep on top of you if we feel like things are starting to slide. We will try to intervene and provide more support so you guys have a really solid and strong senior year. So for the timeline, we are up in this nice little fall section where we are meeting with students right now. Seniors, you guys should really be putting together your lists. You should be reviewing for SATs if you are planning to take the SATs again. Khan Academy is a phenomenal resource. It's completely free. It's right through the College Board. And most students that use it, I believe their scores go up 50 or 100 points. Like, it's pretty crazy if you take that Khan Academy seriously, how much it can really help to improve your scores. Completing your applications, if you're applying in November for your early decision or your early applications, early application deadlines, using I Am College Bound as sort of that deadline date for November 3rd, that's going to be a really good target deadline for a lot of students. Getting organized, I think that's probably one of the hardest pieces of this, is what is the best way to sort of set everything up? And truly that is a student to student, family to family type of a situation. I'm a big Post-it note person, so I would have tons of Post-it notes with colleges and dates and deadlines all over the place. Probably look like a hot mess and a lot of chaos, but to me, it would make perfect sense. Other people, I love when my students come in and they're like, I have a spreadsheet and it's color-coded and I have all my dates and all my things. That's lovely and beautiful and that works for you. So truly, whatever works for you and your family, just stick with that and use your own process. That's really going to be the best way for you guys to hit all those deadlines and be the most successful. Filing your FAFSA on October 1st. So it opens on October 1st, but you don't have to file it on October 1st. They're not going to run out of money. So just know you don't have to be right there at 12:01 on October 1st trying to put in your username and password. It's okay. Take a breath. It'll be there in a month if you need to wait a month to get your things together, or if you want to wait and come to the fantastic financial aid night that we're going to be hosting with NEEF and sort of get the ins and outs of how these forms work, what I need to be looking for, and sort of get a heads up on it. You have plenty of time to finish it after that as well. So I don't want people to be panicked that, oh no, they're going to run out of money. No, that doesn't happen. And then visiting colleges, attending college fairs, meeting college reps. This is some of the best stuff when it comes to this process. We have college reps that are actually going to get to come back into the building. I'm so excited about this. For the last 2 years, it's been a lot of virtual stuff, and that's great. I'm glad students had those opportunities, but nothing really beats getting to sit down at a table and talking to the rep that most likely is probably going to be reading your application. How nice is it they can put faces with names when they're looking through those things? It just can make a really good, powerful impact if you have that good conversation. Do some follow-up emailing with that person. It can make an impression. Anything you can do to give your application a personality, I just feel like is always a good thing. Attending college fairs, this is a really nice way to get to see a lot of schools at once, but sometimes it can be a little overwhelming. So if you are thinking of visiting a college fair and you need a few tips and pointers, come down to school counseling and we're happy to help you out in ways to sort of get that organized. Because it is nice to go in there with sort of a plan of attack in terms of how to approach all those schools. And then visiting college campuses, I really stressed this point when I was talking to the Running Start English classes that unless you put your feet on the campus, you really don't know how you're going to feel. If you are looking at colleges that are far away and you're like, oh, that plane ride's going to cost a lot, and then the hotel and the travel and the food and all the things, you don't have to make multiple trips. Have your student do their research. They have wonderful virtual tours where you can sit back on your couch with some popcorn and you can go through a virtual tour of a college. The virtual tours are wonderful because anywhere that little camera can go, you get to go. On a regular tour, if they haven't secured a dorm room or a classroom, you kind of don't get to see those things. But on the virtual tours, you get to have those chances. So if you have schools that are farther away, do the research, look at the virtual tours, apply, get in, and then go out and travel and make sure that it's going to be a good fit for you by putting your feet on the ground. You do get a feeling in terms of if it's going to be a good fit or not on the campus. I'm sure some of you that have already been to some colleges have had those feelings of, ooh, this is a good fit, or I don't think I could really see myself here. And sometimes parents and students don't always see eye to eye when it comes to those things. So definitely make sure that you're following up with each other with how you're feeling about the campuses after those visits. In the wintertime, really applications should be coming to a close, like right around that holiday break. That's when we really start to shift gears a little bit, but really we have right through then to be completing applications. And then searching and applying for outside scholarships, that is sort of when all of those things start to open up. So nobody needs to be panicked right now if no one's applying for scholarships yet. And in the spring, that's when some of the fun stuff happens. That's when you get your financial aid packages. That's when you get your acceptance letters. And you make that final decision of where you're going to end up going and attending. So there's a little bit more stress when it comes to that. But then May 1st comes and you have that final decision and everyone can just celebrate and enjoy. And we're happy to be part of any of these steps that you guys feel like we need to be a part of. I tell my students I am here as much as you need me or as little as you need me in this process. Financial aid. Yeah, college is expensive. It's not getting cheaper either. There are really, the financial aid piece is really that secondary piece of the application process. So the first piece being the student's application. This is really the second part of that application is applying for financial aid. Families have to fill out this FAFSA form. I cannot stress it enough. There is billions of dollars of free money that is left sitting in the government because people do not fill out the FAFSA because they don't think they're going to qualify for anything. fill it out. It doesn't hurt anything, and you will get some type of financial aid, whether it's a loan or a grant or something. You will walk away with some type of financial aid to help you pay for college. You don't have to use it and take it, but you will be offered something, I promise. I filled out lots of these forms. Everybody gets something. There are some schools, though, that do want to have an additional form called the CSS profile. This is a lot more in-depth than the FAFSA, but I like to think of it as it takes a look at your more real-life month-to-month debt. Correct me if I'm wrong. I know I've had to fill this out before, so I haven't yet. My daughter's only 10. I'm not there yet. But this takes a look more at your real month-to-month debt versus just your total income and some of those investments like the FAFSA does. So to me, I feel like sometimes a CSS profile can really help a student with their financial aid because they're looking at that day-to-day, what that bank account looks like. What are those medical bills you're having to pay that the FAFSA doesn't take into consideration? What is your mortgage? What is your car? So there's a lot of different pieces that CSS profile looks at that I do feel like sometimes can be helpful for families. So don't be intimidated by the form. You can stop and start it as many times as you need to. College Board is actually really great when you call them and ask for some help with this. They will 100% help you. Oh yeah, CSS profile, that's sponsored by College Board, by the way. They sort of own a lot of this process. So that is a form. Only 2 schools in our state require the form, St. Anselm's and Dartmouth. Other than that, if you're applying to school in New Hampshire, you don't have to worry about the CSS profile. And sometimes schools do have a specific financial aid form that's just for their school. So you just want to make sure that you're taking a look down through all of those forms and that you hit everything. Those are a little bit more rare, but definitely the FAFSA is one every school wants to see, and then that CSS profile would be the next one if you have to do it. And the FAFSA, every year. Got to do it, every year. Net price calculators are a really nice tool. All colleges are now required to have them as part of their website, and this is just a way for you to put in, answer some different questions throughout their process on their financial aid page, and they come up with a dollar amount that is about what you would pay going to that school. When I was working at NEEF, there were 2 ladies who had gone through, their students had gone to college, and they used these calculators and really said they were pretty accurate within $2,000 or $3,000. So when you're thinking about $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, coming within a few thousand is a pretty good deal. You have to answer the questions very accurately, but at the same time, this can give you a nice little snapshot in terms of what that college cost could look like. It is not your financial aid package. It is not what the financial aid office will send you. It just gives you an idea of what you could be getting. Financial aid night. So October 13th, you can learn more about the FAFSA. I know it's so exciting. And NEEF is going to come in to do that presentation for us. It's at 6:30. It is a really nice way to see what has happened. The form actually went through a lot of changes over this past year. They eliminated a bunch of questions. They've changed some of the verbiage. So it might be a nice thing, even if you've done this before, if you have other children who've gone to college, just to come and get a refresher because it does look a lot different this year. My hope is that they've streamlined it so it's a little bit simpler. But at the end of the day, NEEF will take us through exactly what that's going to look like. And scholarships. So there's a bunch of different ways that students can be looking for scholarships. Right now, what is really available are more those national resources and scholarships. That's sort of what's been put out there at this point in time. And there's not a ton of them out there. So nobody's really missing out on tons of money if you're not looking at scholarships today. That is very, very okay. But if you look at some of those websites at the bottom, those are viable, real websites that you can use to look for scholarships. Every once in a while, there'll be a scam that will come out, but for the most part, the scholarship websites that are there are all good. New Hampshire Charitable Foundation, I cannot say enough good things about them. They are a statewide student aid program, and they have about 400 different scholarships accounts that they work with. And so essentially, as a student, you, kind of like a Common App, you send in one application, and they sort of look and go, oh, you qualify for a little bit of this, and a little bit of this, and a little bit of this, and they put together almost like a financial aid package for you, and they send it to you. Students who use the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation often get a couple $1,000s. $800 to, I think, $3,000 is the average. So it's definitely worth the time to take a look at that. That application doesn't open, I believe, until February for students, but we'll definitely let you guys know when that comes up. For 4-year students, the application deadline is usually April 15th. If you're looking at 2-year schools, it should be open year-round for those applications. So take a peek at their website and just see what that application looks like. And then our local resources, really our local scholarships, that starts closer to the spring, like end of winter into spring. We will start just posting tons and tons of stuff onto Naviance with local scholarships, and students fill out one application for that. And they're either chosen in-house by a committee or they're chosen by the actual scholarships themselves. But it's a really great opportunity to sort of get money from people in your own backyard. Local scholarships is really where students usually get the biggest bang for their buck, because people in Goffstown want to see Goffstown students go off to good schools, New Boston students go off to good schools. So it's a really important part of our community, I think, to have these local scholarships through employers and civic organizations. So maybe through your work you find out you have a scholarship, definitely have your students apply to that. Did I see a hand up? Someone just stretching, okay. Hey, thanks for coming. So we probably just sort of scared you and overwhelmed you in a lot of ways, but hopefully this also helped to clarify some of this process for everyone. And just know that no matter what, we are all here for your students. No matter what letter of the alphabet they fall in, we're all here to help out every one of the students, make sure that this process is smooth, you guys feel good about it, and no matter what, when you graduate, you know what steps you're going to take next and how to take them, and you feel good about taking them. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
So do we get a pass for attendance points or something like that during college visits? If we go into our college, is there some sort of excuse absence?
You get 4 whole days. So if you wanted to go and take some college tours, your students are actually given 4 excused days here at Goffstown High School, where we do not have those attendance points count. All we need to see is like a parking pass or like a confirmation if you actually set up a tour. They usually send an email confirmation. We just need to see that at the main office, and then they'll excuse that time for a college visit. I think it goes in as like CV in Power School. So if you see that, that means that you were at your college visit. So, and you can take the whole day. We also have days coming up like PSATs and Columbus Day and all of those holiday type things that you can take those days and travel around and go visit some schools during those little mini vacations. Other questions? Sweet, we did a good job. Yes, again.
How do I get my GPA recalculated if I had a mistake on my transcript last year?
That should all be happening now. We are in the process of doing all the recalculations for GPAs from last year to this year. So if you do have a copy of your transcript, that rank is not accurate yet. So give it about a week or 2, and that should all be accurate by then. Yeah.
SAT scores?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a number where you say, if you hit this number, you should submit it, or do you do that school
A
by school?
perfect score. It depends on the school. It truly does. I actually did some research with a student the other day, and the college was wonderful because they actually mapped it right out, saying, if you have a score over this, go ahead and send it in. We want to see it. If you don't have a score over this and your GPA is really nice and high, don't bother sending your scores. So really taking a look at that at the websites is going to be the best way to know that. Yeah.
Is it worth retaking them? Like, if you get a higher score, or if you get a lower score, can you keep the higher score?
Oh, yeah. So when it comes to the scores, and sometimes I forget this because it's just been happening this way for so long, when you send off your scores, even if with a mix of tests, that's how you're getting your highest score, colleges will automatically super score that at this point. I think every single college just does that automatically now. Years ago, it used to be like you had to request that they super scored it. Now they just want to see the best of the best, so they'll take that. And if one test overall is higher, just pretend that other one didn't happen. Yeah.
Should we think about taking the ACT exam if we're in a BS9 major?
Oh, that's a great question. I like the ACT test. It's quite different from the SAT in terms of how it's scored and what the questions are. There is a science section to that. I don't think it hurts anything to take the ACT. It is a different test. It gives you a different set of scores. It sort of tests a different type of your knowledge. So if you do take that test, there are actual sort of correlation charts you can look up. So if you got a 1250 on the SAT, and a 28 on your ACT, it'll tell you which score is higher, and colleges will take either score. So it'll take either the SAT or the ACT. You don't have to send them both. So I think for someone like you, knowing you, it would not hurt a darn thing for you to take that ACT. Sorry. Great question, though. Okay.
I love that it's the students that ask the questions. That's the
I
best
know.
part of tonight.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Anyone else for last minute? Just know that we are, like I said before, always here. You can certainly email your school counselors, give us a call. Ms. Lewis, I'll volunteer her time as well. She loves this process, and I think she misses sometimes having her own caseload of students. So feel free to hit her up with any questions as well. But thank you guys all for coming tonight. We really appreciate your attention and time.